Hello, I'm Jody from Tales of Cloth, and today I'm going to show you how to make an ice cream soda block. So I like to cut my shapes from fabric strips, especially when they're not directional, the fabric isn't directional, like this one. And I just place the paper on the strip and cut an approximate 3/8 of an inch seam allowance until I have 6 shapes to make the star. Now there's a little trick with basting diamonds, and you can find all the information for this on my blog, and I'm going to show you how I baste in a way that makes the tails created really easy to manage. So I always start on the right hand side of the widest angle, and I move the shape in an anti-clockwise direction, so I'm actually gluing in a clockwise direction. And if I baste every shape like that, then the tails face in opposite directions. And I'll show you how and why that's helpful once I've basted these. Okay, so I've basted all my shapes and all of the tails face the same way. When I turn it into a star, all of these tails are going to nest in a way that's going to be very neat and easy to press. And it also means that because they're facing opposite directions to each other, if I put one in this way, it still interacts with that little windmill shape. So what this means is you don't need to worry about which way your diamonds are facing when you sew them together. Okay, I always start my stitching with a quilter's knot. And I pick up 2 shapes, place them in the format that I want to sew them, and then fold them right sides together so that I know that these are the 2 seams I'm stitching together. And then I just whip stitch until I get to the point. I like starting at the widest angle, because starting at the corner is a little bit trickier, it's a bit more flimsy. But also, as you'll see, we're going to create a little half star without breaking the thread. Okay, so when I get to the point, I stitch an extra stitch into the corner there, open it up, and then place the 3rd diamond alongside, move it over so that it's facing right sides together, and then stitch this seam. One of the things we like to keep in mind when sewing our star is creating a really nice point in the center. It's not essential, and by the time you finish your quilt you might not even be able to notice, but one way to improve your points is to make sure you line up your diamonds when you're about to sew them together on all sides and not just at the point where you're going to start. And the reason is that sometimes the fold of fabric can create an extra millimeter or so off the shape, and so you can end up sewing your shapes together a little bit inaccurately. But if you line it up on all sides, then you're more likely to get an accurate point. So when we sew the 2 half stars together, we're going to focus our attention on matching up the center points. And you can see I'm keeping the tails out of the way of my stitching as I go. I'm just going to stitch a couple of times in that corner of this side of the star, and then move these tails out of the way and stitch a couple of times in the next corner, and then finish the seam. When I get to the end of the seam, I stitch a couple of times in that corner, and then on the third stitch I put my needle through the loop a couple of times. And there's my star. And if we put these all back in place as we basted them, there's my lovely back. Okay, for the next round, I've done a little bit of fussy cutting, and you can find a tutorial on fussy cutting on my blog. So again, I like to start at the wide angle because the narrow angle is more flimsy. So I'm going to fold it over in place so that we have the right seams lined up. And stitch until we get to the point. So I've gotten to the end of that seam. I'm going to open up that piece, grab the next piece, line it up in place, and then fold it over to match up these seams. And I'm always centering the two pieces against each other rather than lining it up with one side or the other. Okay, so I've added the kite shapes all around the star, and I'm back at this point here, almost where I started. And so I'm just going to fold this shape here to allow me to line up the final seam. Stitch a couple of times in the corner. And sew along here to finish the round of kites. There we go. Next, I'm going to add these crowns to finish off my block. So like I said before, I'm going to start in the wide part of the angle rather than a point, and I'm going to lay it out the right way and then fold it at the seam that I want to match up so that I make sure I get the right seams lined up together. Move any tails out of the way, and sew into the fabric folds, and then whip stitch all around the block. And here's my finished ice cream soda block. For the kit, the pattern, and lots more information, head to www.talesofcloth.com. Thanks for watching.